Hello, mystical souls. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Shop Chats. Today I have a big old cup of hot chocolate as it is feeling very much like autumn here in the UK. It's raining, the temperature has dropped, so I've got a nice big cup of hot chocolate. I will tell you a fun fact about me. I am a certified chocoholic. I love chocolate, and it is probably the one thing in the whole world that I would absolutely struggle to live without. I've definitely gone for a few weeks without it, but that is not by choice. That would be on a cleanse or something like that. Chocolate is a huge part of my life. So welcome. I haven't decided yet if the coffee shop chats will be weekly or 2 weekly. However, after last week, I really felt like jumping on again and creating the part 2 of the coffee shop chats. And for those of you who are new, I am Chloe the Elven Mage. I am your host. And I wanted to create these coffee shop chats where it can feel like we are together sitting intimately in a coffee shop or a cafe or in a witch's hut or somewhere cozy, wherever that you relate to. And it can just feel like we're having this intimate, personal conversation, and I can just tell you a little bit more about me, my story, my journey, where I am, where I've been at, where I'm going, and whatever else it is that comes up. So thank you so much for being here. Honestly, my heart is just bursting with gratitude and joy and warmth whenever I see that people have watched my videos and enjoyed some of the content that I share. It means the world to me. So I invite us, actually, let's take a deep breath together so we can just drop into comfort and into our heart spaces. And welcoming you to the Mystic Hearts Coffee Shop. And before I dive into today's topic, I want to remind you that tomorrow I am launching my Mystic Spirit Conversations live stream on YouTube. Will be around 1 hour 30 minutes to 2 hours, just depending how busy we are. And it's going to be every single Friday, every week, live on YouTube at 5 p.m. UK, which I believe is 12 p.m. Eastern time until the clocks change, and 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you are available tomorrow, it would just mean the world to me if you jumped on. If you have a question or some guidance, healing or clearing that you wish to receive, or some messages, whatever it may be, come with your full self and you will be welcomed with open arms. And tell a friend to join too. And of course, the live will be posted afterwards as well if you aren't able to make it live. So that is tomorrow, and I will drop a link on this video where you can get notified and directly join the live. But super excited. It's the first time I will be hosting my own YouTube live stream, so yeah, all the support I can get would be incredible. Now we'll get back to today's topic. So last week in the coffee shop chat, it was totally ad hoc, totally off the cuff. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I just really felt like I felt the calling to do a video talking about my journey and how it got me to where I am now. And honestly, an hour just flew by like at the click of fingers. And I got a request from last week's video to talk more in depth about the time that I spent living in Indonesia. So cheers to that. That is going to be today's topic. And by the way, I really invite you to join me having a drink with me, whatever fills you with joy, whatever you feel like is a little bit of a treat or a comfort drink. Maybe that's coffee, tea, hot chocolate like me, milkshake, protein shake, whatever you want, like bring it here and have a drink with me. You can pause this video if you want to go and grab something now, so we can really feel like we're having this little chat and this experience together. And I also, I love chocolate. I'm going to be sharing something very special in this video today. Not only am I going to be talking about my time spent living in Indonesia for 4.5 years, I also have my diary from that time, and I'm going to be sharing a story that I wrote while I was there. I'm not going to reveal any more of it yet because I kind of want to weave us into that timeline of where I wrote the story and what it's about, the subject. So yeah, stay tuned for a very intimate share, which is something I've never done before. I've only ever shared this story with the person who I was there with, sharing it with, and maybe like 1 or 2 other friends, but I haven't even looked back and read this story for years. So if you are here for a slice of vulnerability, my friend, you are in the right place. So for those of you who don't know, or you're new to my channel, I had the absolute blessing and privilege of living and working in the beautiful Indonesia, an Asian country, for almost 5 years. And I recognise and honour and appreciate that I am from the UK, so I am privileged to get on a plane and go and live wherever I like, and I give thanks for that every single day. And I also just want to honour and acknowledge that there may be some people even watching this video today, and many people across the world, who do not have that privilege to travel and go and live wherever they want. Honouring you, and I do not agree with that, you know, also honouring the fact that we are all beings here on this earth, and I do not believe in borders or boundaries. I do not believe in passports. I do not believe in skin colour taking away rights. So, and that's why we're here, right? This is why we are facing our fears. That is why we're doing the deep spiritual work. That's why we're doing the shadow work, so that we can actually recognise all of these systems and structures that are interwoven into the very fabric of the society that we've been born and conditioned into, are not in service of all beings and are not in service of humanity in any way, shape or form. So I just wanted to honour that. Like, I'm very aware and very grateful, but also very pissed off, I'm going to say, that so many beautiful humans, beings and individuals on this planet do not have the rights that are their God-given rights to freedom and sovereignty. So yeah, just honouring that. But I did have that blessing, and the reason why I moved across the country to start a new life was because I was running away from a lot of my own problems. I talked quite openly, and I always share this openly, that I had a lot of experiences, and which actually turned into a lot of, let's say, problems, dependencies on drugs and alcohol. I had a very toxic relationship to all substances from the age of 16 until 24, which is when I decided to move to Indonesia. It was just like I was stuck on this hamster wheel of addictions, starting a new job, starting a new career, and then just dropping off because I just wanted to party and I just wanted to escape life and I wanted to experience those higher elevated states. I'm a very dreamy person. I love fantasy lands. I love visualizing things and dreaming up these fantasy realms, and drugs and alcohol really got me to that place a lot of the time. I'm not glorifying them in any way, but there was this part of my soul that was really seeking out the magic and the mystery that was not a part of my human experience at the time. And growing up in London, a very fast-paced, money-orientated, materialistic city, it's very easy to get caught up in that and to feel the weight and the heaviness and the burden and the responsibility of feeling that you have to earn money and you have to be successful. That was very much present on my shoulders, and it just caused this endless cycle of addictions and confusion and trying and failing, and just constantly feeling like I was up against a wall and like I was battling against myself. So a beautiful dear friend and soul sister of mine, who I had already previously travelled around a bit with, had been to Indonesia, and she was just telling me how amazing it was. And she was the one who was saying, let's just go and live there, let's drop everything and go and live there. And I have always been someone who has been able to bravely say yes to things, even when they seem like the least logical route to go down. Yeah, let's just sell everything, drop everything and go and move to the other side of the world. Sounds great, sign me up. We had actually planned on moving to New Zealand because there's good work opportunities there. We could have earned money. We really loved the countryside and the natural lifestyle in New Zealand. But we went to Indonesia and we were just completely spellbound by the beautiful country that it is. Indonesia is made up of something like 19,000 islands. They're not all inhabited. A lot of those are uninhabited, but it's just like nowhere else in the world. So yeah, I remember getting to the point where we had been travelling for a while. We'd met friends for Christmas in Thailand, and then we travelled to Cambodia, and we'd been around and we'd gone back to Indonesia, and our plan was to go to New Zealand from there and settle down and start working and start this new chapter. And it got to the point where I was down to like my last £200. So really low on budget. And I said, okay, we've got 2 weeks in Indonesia because we both really wanted to stay. We didn't want to leave. Our hearts were not set on New Zealand anymore. We knew we wanted to stay in Indonesia and this beautiful little tropical island that we were on, and we'd already made friends and family just from being there for a couple of months. I said, okay, I've got about 2 weeks left before I'm completely broke, so let's give it 2 weeks to find a job, and if we don't, we'll go to New Zealand and we can always come back. And I remember at the time we had both really started working with the cycles of the moon as like a manifestation tool, and I believe this can be done with any kind of cycle. Like I'm realizing this now, it doesn't have to be the moon. It could be any cycle that you believe in, any cycle that you believe to hold magic and weight and power and truth can be a fabulous tool for getting into this cycle of releasing and then manifesting, releasing, sowing the seeds, manifesting. We were doing that with the moon at the time, and we were doing it very strongly and very powerfully. So we would make sure that we would go down onto the beach under the light of the full moon and do a whole ritual and a ceremony. We were using crystals very strongly at that time. So pouring the energetic power of our manifestations into the crystals. Like we were really going for it, and it worked. I manifested a job as a resort manager within a week or 10 days or something. I had an interview, and then they asked me to do a few designing tasks to get the job, and I got the job, and I started working straight away. I can feel myself like getting excited and talking quickly, so I'm going to take a sip break. So I had the absolute blessing of being offered a job as, well, my job title was restaurant manager, but really there was so much more to it. It was a restaurant manager at a huge diving resort right on the beach with 2 restaurants. I was in charge of about 60 staff, probably double or triple that in the whole resort. And there were 2 other English managers who were kind of my directors and my point of call, who also lived there. So it was really beautiful to have 2 English people to relate to and kind of to look up to as well, because they had lived their life there. But it was this incredible opportunity that was handed to me in the palm of my hands to completely redesign the cocktail menu, the food menu. And when I say redesign, I don't just mean like the graphic design of the menu. That was a part of it, but also actually physically get to design the ingredients, like the layout of the drinks and the food. Like, it was just like a dream for my creative soul. So it was a wonderful, amazing opportunity. So of course I grabbed the bull by the horns and took the opportunity. And what was even more magical was my bosses said, oh, like, who are you here with? And I said, oh, my best friend. And they said, does she need a job? Because actually our manager, who owns another resort, is looking for someone in a similar role to you. And I said, yes. And that was that. My friend and I both had a job within those 2 weeks of manifesting them. So it was really, really magical, and we dived straight in and we loved it. I had worked in event management before in the UK, but never like this. Never in like the day-to-day operating of a resort and a restaurant. Brand new language to learn. I mean, wow, that was a whole hurdle of its own, learning Indonesian or Bahasa, but there's also like so many different local dialects, so there'll be different different words and different phrases to pick up on. So I did my best. I did manage to get to a point where I could understand conversations and I could go into a shop and ask for something and have general understanding, but that was hard. So working life, I was working in the restaurant, and me and my friend, we found a beautiful house to live in together. And it was like £200 a month rent. Mind blowing. It's so awesome how cheap it was to live there, and food. Everything was so fresh and local. We would swim in the sea every day. So it really was just dream life. And we were managing the restaurants, which of course had its own dark side, had its shadow side, you know. It was hard work, and it's in Indonesia, the standard is that everyone across the board works 6 days a week. So it's 1 day off a week. So after a while, like I started to feel the weight and the heaviness of that. But it was kind of, for the first couple of years, it was really balanced out by the surroundings and the freedom of the life and kind of the community of everyone on the island. So it was beautiful. And gosh, what more do I share? If you're watching this and you have some questions, please write them in the comments, because I'd love to support people who would love to travel or are thinking about going and living in another country, because it's something that I still plan on doing a few years down the line, but this time I plan on going on my own terms with my own financial means and my own support system, rather than relying on another business to hire me. So yeah, if you have questions about living abroad, visas, traveling, the locals, safety, anything like that, drop it in the comments, because I'll happily do just a shorter video answering specific questions. But yeah, basically living in Indonesia, if you are sponsored by a business, you can get a 12-month work visa, which then, if the company wants you to, you can just keep renewing every year. So eventually I got this visa and it was like, yay, I'm officially like working and living here now, which was awesome. So started to feel rooted and grounded, and made friends with the local people, which in my opinion is like the number one most important thing to do if you do decide to go and live in another country. Learn about the local people, learn about the culture, the lifestyle, the language. Treat the place you live in with respect. Learn the customs and honour those. Because, you know, as you can imagine, tourists have a bad rep everywhere, because we go there on holiday with all our money and drinking and littering and all of these things. So yeah, I made friends with local people, and some of the beautiful staff where I lived would invite me to their homes. And I think that's one of, I will cover a few, but one of my fondest memories about living there was witnessing what would be considered in the West as a third world country. It's a poor country. The majority of local people living there don't have money. The homes are very, very simple. They're like shacks. Some of them have solid built homes, but a lot of them are just shacks, very simple living. The whole family lives there, grandparents, mums, sons, grandchildren, they all live there, and in very small, simple spaces. It is not a materialistic lifestyle whatsoever. And yet most of the beautiful people and individuals that I encountered were so grateful and joyful just to meet someone that wasn't from Indonesia, you know, that it was like a blessing for them just to be in the presence of another. And that was something really heartwarming for me, and really, really eye-opening when you go and live in another country and see how other cultures and other people live, and just how devoted they were to community. Like, they all looked after each other. If you went for dinner, you know, you were fed. There was never a lack of anything. You got looked after. If you're a guest in someone's home, you get treated like royalty. It's so beautiful. And it also left quite a sad space in my heart to realise that I can only speak for in the UK, but in the UK we've really lost that sense of community and your neighbourhood as family and as community, and everyone being looked after. And also just how happy people were with nothing. So yeah, that was a really beautiful experience of living there. And then on the flip side of that, something that was like a shadow side, I would say, and this was only something that I really started learning about and seeing the longer that I lived there. So I would say this would be like more in the 3rd or 4th year that I lived there, was actually how how oppressed most, not all, most of the country was in terms of the treatment of women. So obviously that left a stain on my heart as well, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to move on from there in the end, because I had a slightly bitter taste in my mouth. And I'm not saying anything bad about the country, it is just the ripples of oppression in general when countries get invaded, and religions and cultures and traditions get warped and lost and changed. Yeah, there can be power struggles, and unfortunately ethnic and sex minorities can be the ones who end up suffering. Yeah, so I don't feel that I want to share the stories of the mistreatment of women that I experienced and that I shared. But it was, you know, it not even hidden, you know, it was in plain sight that generally speaking, women were lesser than. So obviously as a very free Western woman, it was quite hard to be a part of that and to witness that, because as a Western woman, I still had my rights and my freedom to a certain sense, but actually having to witness other women feeling that way and just seeing the weight of it and the control was difficult. But I'm grateful actually for witnessing that, because it opened my heart and my mind to the fact that so much of this world, so many beautiful souls, minorities, people all over this world are facing oppression and mistreatment for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I'm really grateful that I got to witness that firsthand, because I feel that it's very easy for us to turn a blind eye to the darkness that is happening in the world, because once we witness it, we actually have to accept it, and we have to realize that there is more to be done. There is always more we can do as an individual. There is always more we can do, always more, and there's always more that I wish I could do. So I'm hoping that even sharing my voice here might even just spark people to research, research cultures, research actually what happens under the umbrella of some very dogmatic religious beliefs. You would be quite shocked. I promise you that. So living there really opened my eyes, and I would say that was a big, important and deep part of my spiritual awakening, because I'd already awakened spiritually. I was working with the moon and manifesting, and I'd had lots of very intense out of body experiences, and I had very, very strong telepathic abilities from a young age. But this rooted me deep in the spiritual awakening of realizing actually like the depth of what needs to be changed in the 3D world. And patriarchal systems and ways of being are very oppressive, and it helped me to see that firsthand. And since then, I've been seeing it all around me. It's not just in Indonesia, it's not just in third world countries, it is everywhere. It is all around us. And until each and every one of us, this is my humble opinion, by the way, but until each and every one of us as individuals honors and recognizes every single being on this planet as equal, as a child of God, if you wish, a spark of creation, whatever you choose to call it, we are all the same. It does not matter what someone's belief is. It does not matter what someone's path is on this life. We are all equal, and nobody deserves to be treated more than or lesser than. Rant over. My heart's really open. Chocolate just like bursts my heart open. Obviously the medicine of cacao is coming through. So yeah, obviously that was a strong message that wanted to come through about my time living there, and also just seeing how happy and free people were with nothing materialistic. And that is such polar opposite to what we're conditioned to believe in the West. It's all about get your career, get your house, have your family. And this was just like, just live your life, be a good person, be grateful for what you've got. You've got what you've got, believe in a God, whatever that may mean to you. So there was so many beautiful blessings and lessons through that. Something else I feel important to share that's in relation to my journey, which weaved into my time living in Indonesia, was that I was journeying a lot with psilocybin. So I had already experimented, as I said, with lots of drugs and partying back in the UK. I had tried mushrooms recreationally a few times, and acid and stuff in the UK. Never really had a very good experience, of course, because it was irresponsible and recreational. These plants have spirits that need to be respected and treated with honor and respect. Of course, at the time, I did not know that. So in Indonesia, magic mushrooms grow, of course, and started taking them recreationally, and a couple of times they were very intense, and I had some very dark experiences, but all a part of the journey of getting to know myself better. And what I didn't realize at the time is that magic mushrooms or psilocybin have the ability to just basically amplify whatever it is that is going on inside of us. So when I had experiences of complete and utter overwhelm and just like, oh my God, I can't handle this, it's because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and inner turmoil at the time, and living away from friends and from family and being on the other side of the world. Yeah, I think these things can be highlighted even more and put under the spotlight. So I just want to say that I am not pro drug use. And I would say that if you do want to work with plant medicines, at the very least, find a friend or a loved one who you trust with your life to be there with you, to support you on the journey, or find a professional, someone who works with plant medicines or a shamanic healer. Because when you start doing it with intention and with respect, it changes the whole ball game. But I didn't know this at the time. I did not know this in Indonesia. But what I will say about psilocybin is that it has been hands down the number one medicinal tool that has helped me with my mental health. Hands down, like completely blown out of the park. And I mean, you're probably seeing it now. There's so many clinical trials coming through to make psilocybin legal, which is amazing. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because it's just profound for mental health. Because, you know, on the back of the drugs, actually before I even started going down a path of drug taking and drinking regularly, I was very, very depressed and I struggled with my weight. I had acne. I was put on all these hormone drugs at way too young, and it completely messed me up. So from a very young age, like early teens, I had like serious mental health issues, depressed like so bad that I wouldn't get out of bed for days. I would just eat my feelings. And then like fast forwarding again, on the back burner of taking all the drugs and alcohol, the anxiety, oh my God, the anxiety and the panic attacks. There was a couple of times when in England I was driving my car and I actually thought like I had died and I was just in purgatory driving around, and like I literally thought I died and I had a panic attack and had to stop the car on a motorway. So mental health in the past was really something I was battling with. Paranoia, depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, all of these things. And psilocybin was the one thing that like flipped a switch in my mind, because psilocybin has the ability to actually change the neural pathways in the brain. Just absolutely mind-blowing magic work. Like, it's just amazing, and I highly recommend anyone who's interested to just read up about psilocybin and what the effects have on the brain, because it's magical. Even if you just take the tiniest microdose where you feel zero effects at all, it shuts off that part of the worrying brain. It just shuts it off, so all of a sudden your mind is quiet. And for anyone who has dealt with stress and anxiety, you will understand what I mean when your mind just doesn't shut up. And then for you to experience that clarity and present moment awareness, it is like a miracle being bestowed upon your life. So yeah, this magical medicine was something that I really started experimenting with a lot in Indonesia. At this point in time, it was still very recreational. But my friend and I would make it slightly ceremonial, where we would go down to the beach on our own. We would find a quiet space. We would stay there. We would set an intention and have a beautiful time. And then this leads into the diary entry that I'm going to share. So like full moons there were just such a big thing, because they were so close to where we were, so close in the sky. Like, it just looked like the moon was right there if you looked up. So the full moons were always a big thing, and there would be super moons where it would just be like the most insane experience ever. You'd be like, I've never even knew that the moon could look this big. You're like, is this even real? So yes, there was this super moon, and we decided to go on a mushroom journey, and there were these very special golden mushrooms from a certain type of the mountain that we were given, and we had no idea how strong they were. And it just sent us off on this wild adventure, like all night and then all into the next day. So I'm going to read the story that I wrote the next day. I believe it was the next day. It may have been after I'd slept, about this journey. And by the way, just disclaimer, everything that I talk about in this story is not the opinion that I hold sovereignly. It is just an experience that I had throughout this journey. So I don't hold any prejudices or any ill thoughts or feelings towards anyone. This is just a story that I wrote, and when I write, even when I write factual things, I quite like to dramatize and fantasize and mystify the story a bit. So yeah, some of it is slightly exaggerated, but I'm going to take you on this journey with me. So if you haven't already, now would be the time to grab yourself a drink, get comfy, and I'm going to take you on a journey with me, imagining that you are on this very tiny island in Indonesia, which is like a paradise island surrounded by turquoise blue ocean, sandy beaches and coral and like all of the most beautiful fish, and this island where there's no cars, so you walk and you cycle around it, and it is a full moon night. So here we go. Looking back on and reading how amazing I felt on the morning of November the 14th, 2016, it makes perfect sense the way that the day and the evening of the full moon unravelled. After a sunny beach day, we cycled over to the sunset side of the island with all of our crystals and found a nice secluded spot to set up a mat with a spotless view of the sea and skyline. We took some incredible photographs with the sunset as our backdrop, and then we did individual meditations to ask the full moon to cleanse us. I set the intentions for my beautiful new crystal, for self-confidence and communication and negative energy, reflection and deflection and womanly guidance. We then left the beach and went back to Wonderland where we were staying. And the beautiful owners of the guest house gave us some rice wine and both a new crystal from Australia, which felt like amazing timing. We then went back home to get ready and drank some more rice wine. However, neither of us enjoyed it, so we decided not to get drunk. We then went to say goodnight to our friend who was not going out, and then we headed to the place to get our special mushroom shakes. We had been told that the mushrooms, for that one day only, were special golden top mushrooms from the mountains, and we are now convinced that they were sent from the moon herself. We spent 3,000 rupiah between us, which should have been for 1.5 cones each, but afterwards our friend, who worked at the place, told us it was at least double that. So, pumped up, full of super magical golden mushroom juice, we began our journey to the other side of the island for the full moon party. I felt the effects after 10 minutes. I had a massive grin on my face, and then after about 20 minutes of cycling I had to stop and take a breather because the effects were so intense. I felt like something powerful was erupting inside me. I remember feeling scared, and the visuals were so strong I could hardly see straight. As we carried on cycling, the trips really started to kick in. It felt like we were fairies riding through a miniature toyland, and all the surroundings were sparkling and we felt magical. Riding through dark areas was scary and almost bad trip-inducing. However, they never lasted for long. I've never experienced this before, but I had long moments where everything in my visions would change from colour to complete black and white, like a filter had been put over my eyes, and this happened continually for a few hours. Then the sensory, psychic effects started to kick in. Maybe this is just fabricated from my own thoughts, but I fully believe that I have the ability to tap into other people's thoughts and energies. As people passed by us, I could feel and hear their train of thoughts and follow them like an illuminated piece of thread. The difference in energies between men and women was profound. It was like all the men who were out that night had been possessed by the moon. They were perverted, disrespectful, and provoking, and all the women were beautiful and timid. The full moon is known to change people's energies, and as the moon was so strong and feminine, this could explain the extreme shift in behaviour. I've never felt such a strong hatred and fear of men combined at once. It made me want to gravitate towards other women. The negative energies got stronger and stronger as we got closer to the full moon party. We even saw groups of people walking away from the party. We stopped and asked people what was wrong, and they told us it was awful and not worth going to. We made the decision to turn around before we even made it in. The things we saw and experienced on the cycle home cannot be put into words, but I will do my best. We were stopped in our tracks twice. The first time was by the ocean, which looked like an endless blue, glittering mermaid vortex. The second time was by the moon and the clouds. The moon was huge and bright, surrounded by a set of clouds, which appeared to be worshipping the moon itself. It was as though someone had painted the clouds into the shapes of feminine figures and all of the zodiac signs, which were both cradling and gravitating towards the beautiful supermoon. We carried on the bicycle ride back to the main strip and still felt uncomfortable by the way men were acting around us, so we decided to go home and change into something more comfortable and less revealing, even though we should be able to feel safe to be ourselves. When we made it back home, a slight trip of paranoia and confusion started to kick in. The intenseness of the mushrooms mixed with the whirlwind of energies from the bike ride hit me all at once, I think. I felt scared and I found it hard to enjoy myself for a while. I asked my friend if we could just go home to our house for a bit. So we sat on the front doorstep and listened to beautiful girly tunes. My favourite memory of being the song Scott Wolf. We looked up at the moon, of which we had a clear view of, between the houses. It couldn't be more perfect, and we saw the strong vibrations and energies that it was giving off. We talked about our appreciation for each other and all the strong women in our life, and for the perfection of the evening. Yet I found it hard to show and feel emotion in that moment. I had a realization in that moment that all of my personal flaws and the reason for why I have had bad trips in the past, I have a lot of internal emotion which needs to be released. And I need to never be afraid or ashamed to release these feelings and wear my heart on my sleeve. There is nothing to be afraid of. I realised that appreciating the moment and living with love are the most fundamental ways of being. Appreciating the moment and living with love are the most fundamental ways of being. I am a strong, magical, fairy goddess, and nothing should ever make me feel any other way. I honestly feel like this moment has changed me forever. I have a flowing feeling of contentment in my heart, which wasn't there before. Like I've been freed from anxiety and my soul feels more happy and free by the day. I definitely have my crystal's energy to thank for this change. Once the intensity of our trip calmed down, we headed to the beach, where we danced while our friend sang and played the guitar. We howled at the moon like wolves and felt happy and comfortable again. We stayed and watched the beautiful, magical sunrise over the beach, which is exactly what we had hoped to do the day before. I cannot be more thankful for such an astounding and unforgettable experience shared with my best friend and soul sister. Thank you, universe. You truly outdid yourself. Until next time. So that was my story. It actually feels really beautiful to read that back again and to share with you. So that was, let me see if the date is on this. I have a feeling, I want to say it was 11 years ago. Could be more. No. So the year, okay, so it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And there's also some real nuggets of wisdom in there. And interesting that my psychic abilities were so strong at that time and only strengthened by the powers of the medicine. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to that story with me. Reading back on that, it just fills my heart with so much joy and amazing memories. Again, I'm not advocating anyone to take drugs or to go out and take mushrooms unless it's something that you feel comfortable and called to do. I would always recommend doing it with a friend and having someone there to hold you if some of the darkness or some of the anxiety or some of the tension does come up. But yeah, magical moments in time should always be honoured and celebrated and remembered and shared. So if you're still here, thank you. And I'd love to know in the comments what your favourite part of that story was. I would really love to know that. Because I was focusing on reading it and trying to make it into an interesting story as the storyteller. So yeah, I'd love to know your favourite part of that story, or something that intrigued you, or your reflections about that. And yeah, I suppose what I want to share is that honouring where I'm at in my life. So I'm 35. I am single. I don't have children. I don't have a family. I'm an only child from a single parent home. So I have had quite a solitude life. I don't want to say lonely, because I've had amazing, rich experiences. And I have consciously and unconsciously, there's definitely something in my subconscious, there's definitely something in the blueprint of my DNA, but that's a deeper chat. But I have definitely consciously chosen to live a life rich in experience and in adventure. I have chosen to put spiritual and personal development above financial and home development. I have never been one to chase a career, but I have been one to chase getting to know myself more and more and more deeply. I've definitely been someone to chase truth. And I will honour that. And I really want to honour that now, because if there's anyone out there who is my age or older or younger who feels like they are lost and who feels the yearning to walk the unknown path, and to walk against the grain of society and to answer the calling of adventure, I would say, please do it and have no regrets. A lot of my life was spent in regret due to experiences that happened to me when I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. But through deepening my spiritual development and my personal development, and really putting my heart and my soul into healing and facing the shame and the guilt and the shadows, now I can honestly look back at my whole life with so much love and so much gratitude and so much warmth towards my younger self. She was only doing what she wanted to do at the time. She was only following this calling of her soul, whether that was through escapism, whether that was through rebellion. So I've had no regrets, and I'm here now at age 35, back in England, staying in my family home. I have been building up my business, more than I ever have in the past year, but building it up slowly from complete scratch with no experience for the last 5 years, and it has changed and shifted and evolved, and it feels really exciting. I don't feel like time has been lost. My life, as I said, has been rich with adventure and experience, which I still choose to weave into my future. So I want you to know that if you do have a beautiful home, family, and life, and a conventional life that you are happy with, like, a part of me, of course, envies you, but you are amazing, and that is great. But if you are feeling like a black wolf, if you're feeling black sheep, oh, I love that I said black wolf. Black wolf, that is stronger than black sheep. If you're feeling that way, and if you're feeling lost and confused, and you're feeling like you are just allergic to doing things that you're told are the right thing to do, please know that you're not alone, and please know that your heart knows the way. If you tap into your heart and tap into whatever brings you that childlike sense of excitement and joy, whatever fills you up with energy to the point where you feel like warm and fuzzy and you can feel those lightning bolts of energy running through you, please follow that full force with no regrets. And you know that it's never too late. It's never too late to start. It's never too late to end. It's never too early or too late to die and be reborn again. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up this conversation today. What I will say is that towards the end of my time in Indonesia, as much as I loved my job and really just got so much experience from management and from designing and doing something I'd never done before and having all that responsibility, the heaviness of it did begin to weigh down on me, and I did start to get depressed. And I recognized that alcohol had been a running theme in my life that had put me into a lot of dangerous and debilitating situations. So yeah, it took me down a path of sobriety, but I also started isolating myself from the people that I was with, and I just realized that I no longer wanted to work in an environment that was like supporting the tourist industry, basically. I wanted to do something which felt as though it had a bit more purpose. So yeah, I decided to get my yoga teacher training. I had been practicing yoga from quite a young age, actually, since I was like 21, and I was doing events management and just super stressed and anxious all the time. Yoga was the first thing that made me realize I can actually feel relaxed. So I'd been practicing for a long time and practicing a lot in Indonesia as well, and I decided that would be a beautiful place for me to start. So I booked it all, booked my teacher training, and then I had planned to travel around India, Nepal and Sri Lanka, and then the lockdowns happened and everything just got turned upside down. I had already handed my notice in for my job, but I was meant to stay there for another like 4 months or something because of my visa. And then all of a sudden the lockdowns happened, and my inner guidance just said to me, Chloe, if you don't go back to England now, you're going to get stuck here for who knows how long. Could be a year, 2 years, who knows. So yeah, my guides basically just said to me, you need to go and book a flight and leave within the next few days. So yeah, I packed up my stuff, took the savings that I had and moved back to England. And luckily the amazing yoga teachers who I had booked with in India still taught me the teacher training online, and I even got one-to-one tuition for the 2 months that I did that. So yeah, I do believe that divine intervention was what brought me back to England. I'm very much in a state of my life of rooting and grounding and integrating now into my ancestors. Now that I've done that portion of my life of soul seeking, so much shadow work, which is just still ongoing, soul seeking, adventuring, recognizing myself, growth, personal development, spiritual development. And now is the place where I'm really grounding and finding my feet and calling back my power and really recognizing, you know, that I am the one in the driver's seat of my life. So here I am doing these videos, and yeah, this is just such a beautiful journey to be on as well, finding my confidence and my voice in content creation. Yeah, so I'm grateful to be here, grateful for anyone who has made it this far in this video. If you haven't and you want to just watch this in bits, that's awesome too. But yeah, sending you so much love. And if you're interested in working with me, my best-selling session is one-to-one quantum healing expansion session, which used to be called soul expansion, but it's quantum healing. So yeah, I will drop the link in the comments if you want to do that. It's an amazing place to start with us working together. But yeah, thank you so much. Sending you so much love. I will see you either next week or the week after. And remember, eventually I will set a time and date that I will do this regularly so that you can get your drink ready to join me. But yeah, for now, sending you so much love. Remember to keep coming back to your heart. Your heart knows the way. Your heart is the North Star. Our hearts are going to save us. From my heart to yours, so much love.